That's great. That's great.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Tell Me Something Great podcast. I am your host, Justin Yates. Thank you for tuning in. We are live in the office right now. I hope you guys didn't mind the birds in episode 1. They were the lesser of two evils, you could say. It was either a loud van and air conditioning or the birds chirping outside, and I thought the birds chirping was a nice little break, so hopefully that wasn't too intrusive for you guys. My big question is, what did you guys think about that interview with Tom Foolery? I had so much fun doing that interview. Not only did I make a new friend, but I mean, if you guys watched it, there are so many behind the scenes stories and just so many gems that he threw out there that are awesome. And it's a great interview. I hope you guys have already seen it. And if you haven't, check it out. It's really great. Tom is insanely talented. He's pretty gung-ho, and just listen to the interview when you hear his story about how he got his job at Adult Swim. I think you'll be pretty impressed and also think it's very, very punk rock. In the first episode, I mentioned that I wrote a script, and I tried to read off of it, but it just didn't feel right. So I'm going to keep trying to just talk off the top of my head and follow this little outline that I have and hope that it will be okay. I have this problem with rambling, so I'm trying to be as concise as possible for you guys while still giving you a little bit of my opinion on some of these things, you know. I've got a little outline here today I want to read through. I've got some questions and some other fun stuff, but I thought we would first start by talking about the cast on my hand. I mentioned it briefly in episode number 1, and I received a few emails asking about it, and it's embarrassing to talk about because I've made this mistake multiple times before. But apparently it's something I need to learn again. I didn't get in a fight with anyone. I punched something out of anger. I've had anger problems for all my life, and the music that I make and a lot of the choices I do with my life combat this. And it's a big thing for me to be on top of this because anger can consume. Well, long story short, I went to Hawaii recently to kind of take a little bit of a vacation because things have been nuts over here. And I think I just boiled over and just had too many things on my plate. And it wasn't any specific person or specific activity that really threw me over. I think it was just my barrel of monkeys overflowed. So to say. And I just snapped in a moment and I just punched something and I broke a bone in my hand, which again is really embarrassing because for the people that follow me, they know that I've been going through hell trying to get back to this little journey I've created for myself. And when I'm frustrated about my current hurdles, my way of dealing with it is creating more avoidable hurdles, and it's disappointing. There's definitely a lot to learn, a lot that I need to learn about it, and not take this situation for granted. And it stinks. It stinks for a lot of reasons, you know. I don't want to let people down. I don't want to let myself down. I don't want to keep repeating actions that I've done before. I want to learn, grow. And seeing that I'm still dealing with anger in this way is depressing. But I don't know if I've become an optimist over the years or what, but I find that there's the things that you want and the things that you need are rarely the same stuff. And sometimes the things that happen are what you need. You just need to learn from them. And apparently I have a lot to learn from this. But the cast is off my hand. I have full range of mobility in my right hand, which I am right-handed. The knuckle is still pretty impacted, and I can still see where the bone is broken. since this is audio this week, I can't really show you guys, but if you take out your right hand and you put your palm facing the ground and you look right behind your knuckle, there's a bigger bone that's right there. I fractured that bone. It almost like the knuckle went back a little bit and then fractured the bone behind it. And I have stiffness in my hand. Moving my fingers in certain avenues hurt it. But after not using it for a while, putting a cast on, some of the initial pain is gone. And I was playing some instruments yesterday. I got a bass gig going on, so I've been trying to get back on the bass and plucking strings with my ring finger, and it seems to be okay. I've got some huge plans coming up in the next year, and if this doesn't recover right, it's gonna be really bad. So my life recently has been doing nothing. Lots of sitting behind the computer, doing a lot of clerical work, remote work for my upcoming project, cleaning the house, just really trying to relax, which is hard. When you come from a world of not having money, you adopt that entrepreneurial type mindset of working 80 hours a week to only make, 20 hours worth of week's pay. You're constantly running around trying to hustle. And that's been my mindset for a very long time, out of survival, out of the want to grow more. A few reasons, but it's really hard for me to sit and do nothing. It's very, very hard. I want to work out. I haven't been working out. I haven't been doing much of anything, and it's difficult to see. It's difficult to do, but it's also difficult to see that, like with working out, for example, and this brings me to my next point, I am fat city right now. I am a bag of flab because for the past 2 months, I've had these minor injuries. First, I had like a muscle in my back freak out, then my shoulder freaked out, then the tendonitis in my arm was freaking out, and then I basically broke my hand. So it's been like weeks and weeks and weeks without working out. Additionally, I was also in the hospital for a while, so that was some time off too. And it just stinks because I've made a lot of progress physically speaking, and lately I've just been a bag of fat, and I don't like it. It's starting to really bother me, and I'm happy it's bothering me because that means that all the work that I've put in, working out and all that has taken, and I enjoy it. It's just it's hard to get back up on that hurdle again, and really that's what I've been doing all week, trying to do more cardio, just trying to move around, because I'm afraid to use my hand. I don't want to do pull-ups and squeeze as hard as I can. I'm just really nervous about backtracking. I don't want to do that. Like I said, I've got a lot of goals coming up. The last thing I want to do is consciously add to it prolonging. I don't want to be the cause of more bad things happening. So I'm just trying to stay as smart, as safe as possible, and just stay focused on the goals every day. And it's been rough, but I'm making progress. I haven't been rehearsing also for many reasons. So getting back up on that hurdle to rehearse is going to be interesting. It takes a while for my body to get used to that workload, and my body's getting complacent right now. So I gotta really push through. But I'm heading to the studio, so a lot of the guitar work I'm doing now is a lot of repetitious stuff. I'd like to be practicing the set and getting out and playing shows, but that has become a secondary priority to some of the other stuff I'm doing. So my focus is really on trying to get some of these bigger jobs done. But regardless, I'm rambling again, aren't I? Man, the lack of rehearsing has got me feeling blue. I'll pick up guitar every once in a while, but just not being able to play the songs, and I don't know, it's got me in a weird place lately. I've been on a stage in one way or another since I was 13 years old, whether it was performing in plays, singing, performing music, even, work behind the scenes. So this whole COVID thing is really strange, to be told that you can't do what you love to do. But then now that restrictions are open and my body's not ready, I'm stuck. And it's disappointing. But I'm not letting it stop me. I'm not dead yet. You know what I mean? Let's keep moving on here. Part of this collection thing that I'm doing, as I said before, is to help people, is to really be able to kind of bridge some gaps and be able to do more with the collection. I had something happen this week that I think is really cool, that I think you guys will like. First and foremost, I have to ask, how many of you are familiar with John Lovitz's, with John Lovitz's cartoon, The Critic? It was I guess you could say a Simpsons spin-off kind of thing, that was on Comedy Central. Very, very funny stuff. The Critic is a show I loved growing up, and I started collecting it recently just on the side. And The Critic is really hard to collect for because it's old. A lot of people have already scooped up many of the hard to find items, but The Critic was so underappreciated that there's not many items available. But over the past couple of years, I've been able to kind of pull together some cool stuff, from some vintage shirts to promotional pictures to film strips from the show to buttons to all kinds of crazy stuff. But recently, I've been trying to liquidize some of my collection to put money into some of the bigger projects I'm doing, and then also into other avenues of my collection. I thought about parting ways with the Critic collection that I've built, and it's pretty sizable. I've got like some import Japanese Critic hats. It's really the vintage shirts; those are the ones that really bring in the bucks. But long story long, I made a post online, and I found a guy who actually owns, or runs, I should say, a critic-based podcast called It Stinks, the Critic Podcast. And this is the guy. I mean, I love collecting for the show, and I like the show, but it's very clear this guy loves the show. And I started looking at his page and seeing what he's all about. I put a post up on Reddit. I was like, I'm looking for a mega fan. Not really interested in reselling, part by part and doing all that fun stuff. Like, I want to find a fan like myself. I want to find somebody who really enjoys this, who's really going to appreciate the work I've done putting in. Maybe I'll make a couple bucks, but I'm not trying to make a profit. I'm trying to find the guy. And it seems like this is the guy. And he jumped on it instantly. And I was so happy to be able to make a couple bucks, but more importantly, give it to somebody who's going to appreciate it, probably more than I will, which is awesome. I love making stuff like that happen. What's even better is when I asked him, hey, do you own any Critic stuff, or are you just a super Critic fan? He told me, well, I own the DVDs. And I said, well, you're a collector now, because you just made a good purchase and picked up a lot of stuff. So you just took your passion to a whole new level. And I'm excited for him. This is obviously something he cares for, and this lot that I got him isn't small. So it's got some good gems, hopefully some stuff you can go out and get autographed, some promo shots, stuff like that. But I'm just happy, man. I'm happy I found the right guy, and I love sharing those passions like that. If you guys get a chance, on Instagram, his page is It Stinks Pod. It's the It Stinks Critic Podcast. That's all things Critic. I thought I'd give him a little plug. And if he ends up listening to this episode, thanks again for making the purchase, man. You're going to love this more than anybody else. So I hope you cherish these items. And once you build a nice throne or bookshelf or something to display them all, you send me a picture, because I'd love to see it. I don't know if it's an attic thing, but I get obsessed when thinking about instruments. There's so many amazing instruments out there, but they cost so much money that I feel like I'm window shopping outside of Gucci or something. Those items I'll never have. Not that I want Gucci items, but I think you guys understand the metaphor. It's those items you'll never have, but you lust after. And right now I've got a bunch of fundraising I need to do for this new project. But there are 2 guitars online that have been, they've been staring at me. And it's funny because one of them is totally not practical. It's a guitar that I associate with my childhood. Without getting into a huge description of everything, it's very 80s. It's very metal, which isn't too practical. It's more of just a want. But the other guitar is a guitar I have been drooling after for a while, and that is the Taylor 8-string baritone. And as you guys will learn throughout the course of this podcast, I use Taylor guitars, but I'm not a huge fan of Taylor guitars. It's just kind of the best thing I can do for the buck. And but the 8-string is something that has always caught my eye. It is not a typical 8-string guitar where the strings go 1 through 8 and, the extra 2 strings are either a higher gauge or a lower gauge. No. This is a normal 6-string guitar, but the D and G string have an additional string on them, pretty similar to how you would see a 12-string guitar. It's just an additional octave of that note. And it's a very creative choice. It's a very interesting choice. And it makes for some really weird blendings because of only a few of the notes having that additional string, opposed to a 12-string where every string has an additional string. 12 strings are just a little bit overbearing for me, but this has kind of like this little spice to it that is awesome. Every year, Taylor releases another version of it. There's a bunch of different versions out there, but the price of it is just so high. But I am really thinking about going into debt to get it because I'd like to redo the song Stuck in the future. And it would be cool to do it on that guitar. Give it not only a little bit of updates to the performance that I do live, but also tonally change things up a little bit too. I think that would be really cool. Also, the instrument, I've had the chance to play it before. It's one of those instruments that kind of encourage you to create on it because sonically there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's just really attractive to me. My older years, I can pull and find inspirations for things, but sometimes normal guitars are just normal guitars, and sometimes you want just a little bit more to kind of pique your interest. And sadly, the guitar community, they usually don't have a little bit more. It's usually, buy a 12-string or have 17 pickup options or have a cup holder on your guitar. It's just too extravagant. I don't need all that. It's unneeded. But a tiny little advancements like those string, like doubling up those strings, that just brings just a little bit of difference to the sonic characteristics that are going on that I think people can still recognize what you're playing, but get a little bit of something extra, and you don't need to add, that's fine. That little bit of extra is something nice and different. You don't need to add an 808 drop or something crazy in there to be quote unquote different. Yeah, long story long, I'm not a huge Taylor fan, but that Taylor always had these weird characteristics to it, and I'm pretty sure they own the patent on that because I've never seen another guitar displayed like that. So I could spend what I'm raising right now, but I can't do that. So I might have to go into debt or raise some serious cash because, man, this guitar is screaming at me, and I have not had a pull to get a guitar in quite some time. So this is pretty exciting. As I'm releasing the interviews that I've done, between each interview is going to be solo podcasts, and I'm doing the solo podcasts on the fly. This way I can take your questions, talk about things that are going on day to day, a little bit more in my life, in what's going on, opposed to something just scripting. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Here's the buffer episode before another interview. But while I'm working on these solo podcasts, I'm finalizing all the guests for season 1. And I've got 3 pending guests to finalize the interviews for the end of this season. I'm working on all the details right now, and I don't want to spill any info yet. Please keep staying tuned, because there is a lot in store, my friends. A lot. So I wrote a little note here that said that I need to start slowly talking about what I'm doing next. I like surprises. I come from that older generation of where, you work on something hard and you make something and you show the world. And you bring it out and you're like, here it is. And opposed to nowadays, it's like, if somebody breathes, they record it and put it online. They're like, look at me breathing. It seems like time and isn't always put into things, I guess you could say. So I have a note here that says that I need to start slowly talking about the new music that I'll be making. And I should first say I'm a fan of a surprise. I like working on projects and putting in a lot of work, and when it's finished, showing you guys, opposed to, breathing, recording it, and putting it online and promoting, look at me breathe, if that makes sense. But as I said, I'm a fan of surprises, so I definitely don't want to shoot myself in the foot. I think by the time we get to the end of the podcast, you guys will know exactly what I'm working on, where I'm working on it, what I'm doing, etc., etc. But I think I want to build up to that. It also gives us something to look forward to. But I thought that I would talk, at least this episode, about one of the first lyrically driven songs for the new release, which is tentatively titled Games Up. I don't know if that name will stick or not, but it seems like that's fitting. My friends point this out a lot. They're like, you use a lot of the same names. The Jig is Up, Games Up, What's Up. I'm like, I don't have a song called What's Up. They're like, yeah, but you get the point. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So Games Up is an interesting song for me, and without disclosing a lot of information on it right now, I just wanted to tell you guys this little interesting story. It's a little bit of a background in how I write some music. The first song on this batch of music that's lyrically driven is a song called Games Up. I don't know if the name of the song will stay Games Up, but it seems like it will. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of the origins of the lyrical content or where it came from, I just thought it would be interesting to tell you guys a little bit about this song. And so I've been living in California for a few years now, but my life here has been very stagnant and really domesticated, and a lot of the same stuff every day. But before I lived here, I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself in Richmond, Illinois for about 2 years. And I spent a lot of time by myself there. And that's where I went through all the physical therapy with my back, all the pain with my back. It was dark times. But in the process of me starting to work out, I wrote Games Up. I wrote the music for it, all the melodies for it. It was really strange because at that time, I knew exactly what the song was going to be. But there was a part of me that felt like I didn't want to sing the same sort of subject matter, which usually a lot of my songs are about, relationships of some sort, love, loss, moving forward, things of that nature. But I just felt when I was working on the song, I knew what the song was going to be. I heard it in my head. I knew exactly where it was coming from. I knew what it was. And there was a part of me that's like, I don't want to write this. I don't want to sing about the same stuff anymore. And the song just sat. And what's funny is that when I was doing all this physical therapy, I tried reworking the song. reworking the lyrical ideas and concepts, and really just trying to humor a different perspective, because the one that I had, it wasn't sitting well with me. And for about a year and a half, close to 2 years, the song didn't do any progress. I kept trying to work on it, but nothing felt right. Nothing felt correct. Nothing sat well. It just felt disingenuous. It was very interesting. But the funny part is that when I finally came to terms with the fact that it's like, I'm not writing something else, there's an obvious pull happening here. I need to just write the thing I don't want to write. I sat down and wrote the song in like 40 minutes. And I knew exactly what the song was going to be. I knew exactly what the words were going to be. I knew that I didn't need to do revisions. I knew exactly what it was. And that's why it came out so quick, which is cool. You know, like I was thrilled to get it out. It was also a little, I don't know, not like saddened or depressed, but just more like, I wish I wouldn't waste the time trying to write something that I shouldn't have written. It's like I wish I wouldn't have wasted the time trying to compose something different than what my mind and heart was telling me. And to me, that's kind of the role of the producer, you know, the person who can stand outside of the initial idea and reform it and come at it from a different perspective. But it was interesting to me. I could never break that perspective. It would not come, no matter how much I tried. And yeah, it was weird because once I stopped trying to make it something else, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna write the song. It came out like nothing. And you know, in the first episode, I mentioned that writing music is difficult for me. It's very hard to go from A to B. But with this song specifically, it wasn't hard at all. What was hard was coming to terms with the things that I was saying in the song, the things that I didn't want to say in the song. Coming to terms with listening to what my heart had to say and not being so analytical about it, or not trying to dilute it with unnecessary perspectives. And it's funny because once I kind of took myself out of myself to try to work on it, I couldn't do much because I'm not that type of person. I can help produce other people's music, and I've done well with that. But with myself, I can't change certain elements, and I can't get away from how I feel. And it's ultimately probably really damaging to me. Like, I don't need to sit for a year contemplating the lyrical content of a song just to be able to come back to square one and write the thing that I knew, or to write the thing that I didn't write in the first place. Very silly, but it's important. It's important to me. I think part of it comes down to singing the songs that I sing live take a toll on me mentally over time. And I need to break up what I'm doing to bring in a little bit of fun. And the grim reality of it is maybe that's just not for me. Maybe this is the reality that I'm in. Maybe this is what my heart tells me. And as much as I would like to do something else, it's not happening. This is what's happening. So that's a little bit of background about Games Up. So in the first episode, I mentioned to you guys that I had to go to the hospital because I had problems with kidney stones and pancreatitis. Well, it looks like I don't have pancreatitis. That was wrongly diagnosed at the ER. I actually went to a gastrologist, and he was like, no, you don't have pancreatitis, but those kidney stones did make your pancreas go crazy. How do I help you guys understand? Let's say your pancreas normally fluctuates between like 2 to 10. is just a rough estimate. Mine was at like 440. My pancreas almost exploded. It was insane. But they said it was all residual. Is that the right word? They said it was all effects from the kidney stones, and that I just need to continue to change my diet and do what I can by myself. I don't know if you guys have ever had kidney stones, but it is intense. Luckily, I don't have some gross story to tell about passing them externally. Luckily, everything's been internal, but from what I've heard, it's just as painful as externally. But in any case, I went to the doctor. I'm making small changes to my diet right now. Apparently, I was eating way too much protein, and those green drinks that I do every morning, I guess I need to space those out a little bit too. A lot of people feel that like eating right is simple once you can understand the science behind it, but I am an idiot and I just keep making mistakes. I'm not understanding the science behind it, and I don't know. We'll see how many times I have to go back and forth before some of this information sticks. But in the meantime, I have to stay away from leafy greens and proteins. So I'm starting to eat more carbohydrates and just trying to mix it up. I do not want to go through the pain of those kidney stones again. That was unreal. Actually, a few days ago, I had a flare up on the other side of my body, on the other kidney, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad. But I've been drinking water like crazy and doing everything that I can. It's really nuts. I keep talking about all these goals that I have in the next couple months. Well, coinciding with these goals, I have to also fix my body in a lot of different ways. It's a lot all at once. But like I said, I'm not dead yet, so bring it on. All right, so as I mentioned before, I can't tell you guys all the secrets I'm working on, but episode by episode, I'm going to let you in a little bit, and I'll tell you this much. This week was a very big week for this project I'm working on. I can say that I've recruited some additional help, and it was a very smart decision to do so. I'm getting more and more excited about these ideas every day, but I still have a lot of work to do. And it's not even work like behind the scenes work. It's writing work, which I'm planning to do this week and have been planning to do. I've just had a lot of hurdles. But luckily, the merchandising aspect of it has started, which is really exciting. And like I said, I've recruited some additional help, and that's very exciting. So as I'm sitting here working on a few things, there's some other parties working on some other stuff as well too. So it's really awesome to be able to know that I'm not the only person here with this mountain of work to do. I feel like it's usually me and the monkey for a lot of this. So to be getting some additional assistance is really great for so many reasons. Again, I understand I'm being vague, but as the episodes go on, I will continue to clue you guys into what's up. So take this as a little teaser and stay tuned because, oh man, if things are looking this good so far, they are only going to be looking better as the months continue. My air conditioner just kicked in. I hope you guys don't hear it. The office is usually pretty closed. It's on like a far side of the house. So usually I'm uninterrupted over here, but the air conditioner is right outside of my window. So hopefully that's not bleeding through. I have no idea what to talk about on the rest of this podcast, but we got a bunch of questions to go over from the internet and a bunch of my fans. Oh, I don't say it enough, but I have the weirdest fans in the world and also the coolest fans in the world. And the small circle of people who have, who got my back, I love you guys. I just wanted to say that. I don't say it much, but I know that, you are one of the 7 people who will probably listen to this. And I want to let you know that I'm thankful that you're listening. And thank you for following me on this crazy journey. All right, so we got questions this week, and we've got a bunch of them. Once again, the email, the tell me something great at Gmail. We got a bunch of questions from the internet this week, and I could not be happier. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the show, sending questions. I love it. Let's have fun these episodes. Once again, for those that don't know, the email is the tellmesomethingGreatPodcast@gmail.com. Got a question? Got a suggestion for me? Need advice? Are you a local musician? You need some advice? Are you into collecting any of the the parallels that we talk about here? Send me a question. Heck, even if it's not about the parallels, send me something too. As I mentioned in the first episode, I'd really like these solo episodes to have a lot of participation in them. So by all means, keep the questions coming, guys. The first question comes from mega fan Sarah, and she asks, how do you prepare yourself for being okay with the vulnerability that's expressed in your music? Well, I'm okay with it now. I think there were a few nights prior to releasing my first CD where I had kind of an existential crisis and didn't really know how to handle putting myself out there like that. But in a almost like masochistic type of way, knowing that I was uneasy with it, I knew intellectually that I had to do that. So I kind of pushed those feelings aside and knew that I was okay with what I was doing. I was okay with expressing that vulnerability, and regardless of what anyone thought, this is what I knew I should be doing. And I just really focused on that through a lot of things. And also, I read somewhere that the actor Peter Fonda, even into his late 70s, would always vomit before a live performance. Butterflies are real. People get anxiety. Though I've been performing on a stage for most of my life, I definitely still get a lot of those things happening to me. And some of that is tied in with that level of vulnerability, but I kind of consciously made a decision a while ago that if I was going to pursue music and do this with my life, that I need to be as vulnerable and as honest as I can and dig as deep as possible, because that's what I believe would set me apart from a lot of my other peers. I just knew that was a huge element that I couldn't avoid. And Sarah, who's a mega fan of mine, has seen me perform, and she's seen that come across. Not everyone sees that, but when people do see that vulnerability and the raw emotion put into the lyrics and the performance, it is magical. I've been known to say, I don't claim to be an entertainer. I don't ever want to be an entertainer. But if you find when I'm doing entertaining, we're going to have a lot of fun. All right, the next question comes from somebody who doesn't want their name said, so we're going to call him Jay. The question is, what do you think Adult Swim will look like, say, 10 years now that Keith and Mike are gone since the AT&T deal? I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but I think I sit with a mass majority of the fans that aren't holding their breath. They've seen some very questionable moves in the past, and they're just kind of baffled, I guess you could say. Some of the choices that were going on through Laszlo's period were awesome, and that's where a lot of these shows came from, and he's responsible for getting them out there, but along with other people. But it just seems like Adult Swim and Cartoon Network and everyone who's involved with that over the past years, they have their motives are more financially driven than it is creatively driven. And I think that there's a middle ground for that. It should also be stated that I understand what they're doing, but I think a lot of fans don't like that. They really like the fact that Adult Swim has been this hub for creative, new ideas, but it's also where they die because they're not getting the proper care. And some of the shows in the past got that proper care, but I don't know if shows in the futures will. I'm very apprehensive. I'm not holding my breath. It would be nice to see them do the quote-unquote right thing. It would be nice to see them listen to their audience. And I guess you could say in some ways they are, with the new Aqua Teen movies that are coming out and the Aqua Teen short and, all these other new rehashed ideas. But even bringing those back starts to raise questions of why. And people involved behind the scenes, even to super fans, are all asking the same questions, which is, these shows were critically acclaimed and loved by, the audience. Yet most of these shows were canceled. Yet the imagery for most of these shows was still used to promote Adult Swim, which is very odd. And then over time, they bring them back now? Why let them go in the first place? Bringing them back also has its fair share of problems. You can always bring back the right people, but as we talked about with rebooting an Outlaw Star show, synthesizing that lightning in the bottle doesn't always work. And of course, we'd hope it to be great. It'd be awesome to get a really cool amount of Aqua Teen shorts and a Metalocalypse movie and all these other ideas. It'd be great to see that, but I don't know how that will look. I don't know what that will do for the things that we've grown to love. I don't know if these ideas will ruin it. I honestly don't know. But I'm skeptical because of things like the AT&T merger. I'm skeptical because of the cancellation of old flagship shows as well as new shows. Adult Swim streams are gone. As Seen on Adult Swim is gone. It's grim. I honestly don't know. It's a really good question, man, but I think it's one of those things where we have to sit back, look at what they've done with previous shows like Rick and Morty, look at what they've done with flagship shows, if that's the correct term, Space Ghost and Aqua Teen, things of that nature. Look what they did with the Moral Oral. And I think put all these things into consideration, even though the powers that be may have changed, some of these are business decisions, and I think that they'll continue to make business decisions. Sadly, I think that those are motivated by finances more than they're motivated by the fans' wants, unfortunately. But all of that I say with a grain of salt, because from what I've learned behind the scenes, they're trying to go to great lengths to, as I said before, re-synthesize lightning in a bottle with some of these new stuff. So I'm not holding my breath. I'm hoping for the best, but planning for the worst. Because this isn't the first time. You know what I mean? All right. Next question. This question comes from Paul. He says, for vocals, what kind of microphone do you use? What would you like to get? Or are you not too bothered? No, I'm pretty bothered. I think these things make a huge difference. For example, today I'm talking to you guys on a Shure KSM 32. The first episode was recorded on an H5 Zune field recorder with 2 condensers. I've got a bunch of live mics here. PG58, Shure 58, Shure 57, just normal stuff like that. The best mic that I have here is the Shure I'm speaking to you from. But there's certain characteristics about this microphone that I like, but also don't like. I would say if I had a Grail, like if price wasn't an option, I believe it's pronounced a Flea 47, Flay 47, one of the two. So a few years ago, I was commissioned to do that song, The Best Day of My Life. I was lucky enough to get Dustin Bennett, a producer out of Lake Forest, Illinois, to work on it. And Dustin's got a really good arrangement of microphones. And we were able to test a bunch of them. And it seemed like the pros and cons of my voice were best shown through that Flea, or Flay, however it's pronounced. it just seemed like it had the best response. The clarity was great. The price tag was about as much as a used Honda Civic, but it was great. And, if funds were never a problem, I would definitely be grabbing something like that for home for doing all vocal work. It's an expensive one, but it's a nice one. We got a question here from OG_Pajama Sam at IG. He sends a question. Would you rather wear Tom Cruise's mom's shoes or Brad Pitt's dad's kicks? I just don't. I've got big feet, man. I think I'm going to have to go with Brad Pitt's dad's kicks because I don't think I could squeeze into some high tops or some high heels. I just don't think it's possible. That's a really great question. Thanks, Sam. I got a question here from some guy named Eric on Instagram who says, who's your favorite female character from Outlaw Star? Hands down, Hilda. I think we can all vote that Hilda is the best. Even though, and I still don't understand, the love for Aisha. Many people think she's the best, but Hilda's character is really great. It's the way that it's written, just she's awesome. Melfina number 2, but yeah, Hilda all day long. Slimy Chipmunk on Instagram asks, are you afraid of death? This is a super complex question. I think now I have more to lose. So conceptually, I don't know if that's the right word. It's like if I died, there would be a loss, opposed to other points in my life where it wasn't like that. I also am someone who has dealt with a lot of issues with depression, and death was something I was chasing after for a long time. So I'm not afraid of it, but my perception over time has definitely gotten me to love life a lot more and cherish it more. And I'm afraid to leave some of the things that bring me joy, but I'm not afraid to get answers. In some weird way, I'm actually looking forward to it, even if that means I'm rotting in the ground. From where I stand from a spiritual or religious standpoint, I would really like some answers to some questions that smarter men than me have posed, and I think death would do that. So in some morbid way, I don't fear it. I also don't welcome it these days anymore, but I also don't hide from that part of life, because that part of life is beautiful in many ways, just as much as being born is. There is a lot of beauty to death. Again, this is a very complex conversation. Hopefully that small little bit summed it up for you, though, buddy. We got another question from Eric on Instagram. He says, what era of Toonami Tom is the best one? And what are your thoughts on Toonami Aftermath? I never watched Toonami Aftermath, so I don't know. Steve Bloom? Is that his name? I gotta look it up now. Steve Blum? I'm pretty sure Steve has done all the voice acting work for all the Toonami's Toms, but I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure when I watched Toonami, it was either Tom 1 or Tom 2. It was basically in the early 90s when Outlaw Star was out. I would watch Dragon Ball Z and Outlaw Star on Toonami, and then one or two other shows. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Tom 2 at that time. You know, this makes me wonder. I've got the retro band Adult Swim Tom action figure, believe it or not. I should bust that one open and see what version of Tom that is. Okay, I got a question here from a musician who I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. I believe it's Daryl Dillon for Facebook. He writes, what is your favorite key to write in? And is there a key that is more difficult for you? Standard tuning, so E standard, is around the key of where I'm normally singing, but I have songs that are in alternate tunings, and I'm putting the capo at weird places, And I know sometimes I am definitely singing out of a comfortable key for me, but I kind of like that. I mean, eventually it'll come to fruition that it's like, okay, this key isn't right for the song, or it isn't right for my voice, even though maybe I want to do it. So it may change over time. But I like the challenge of writing and trying to bend my voice to what I'm writing to. Obviously, there's only so much that I can do, but I like the challenge. Singing metal, doing acting, doing little voice work here and there allows me to distort my voice in certain ways. So I am able to kind of bounce around, but again, sometimes some things just sound good and fit well. But when you talk about like a song like Burn is in the key of F sharp major. And then when you look at a song like Change, it's in B minor. The one in B minor, the capo's on the 2nd fret, and for Burn, the capo's on the 6th fret. So I mean, I am bouncing around a little bit here. So I don't know if I'd have a favorite per se. I kind of like challenging myself as much as I can. Hopefully that answers your question, dude. The next question comes from trippykita.wave on IG, and he says, what is the item you have in your collection that has the craziest story? Well, I've got a few of them, and they're, crazy stories on how I acquired it, crazy stories of just what the item is and how it came to be. And then just also just weird stories. I've got a bunch of them, but as I look around the office, I would say that 2 cool stories that have happened recently that I was really happy about is, one, there is a employee of American Dad who created me a sketch recently of Wheels and the Leg Man chasing after Stan, and Stan is holding my monkey while the monkey is flipping off Wheels and the Leg Man. This was done by Retro Robot Boy on Instagram, who works on American Dad, and it's a really crazy item. It's awesome. I love seeing it in the studio. It's definitely one of a kind. It's great. But again, recently, one of the crazier stories I think is probably the Aqua Teen Hunger Force shoes. And that was just stupid luck. And basically, I'll try to keep this short. The shoe company Etnies and Adult Swim made some custom shoes back in the day. One of them was a brown suede shoe, and the other one was like their skater shoe, but it was the Aqua Teen Hunger Force shoe. It was all multicolored and had the Moonanites on it and whatnot. Both of those shoes are pretty hard to find, the Aqua Teen one being the more expensive of the two. I've always looked out for them, but the price is usually too high, and to find the right size now is very difficult. But I'm constantly hunting, constantly searching for stuff, talking to people, and just trying to network and get out there. It's part of the collection game. It's definitely like a treasure hunt, you know? And so recently I was on eBay and I saw one of these pair of shoes. I was recently on eBay and I saw one of these Aqua Teen shoes pop up, and the price was pretty high. And I messaged the seller and I said, hey, my name's Justin. I'm a collector. I'm not just a hoarder. I'm actually trying to do more with this stuff. I'm not sure, but the podcast is one thing I'm doing, and I plan to try to do more. I'm really after these shoes. The condition of them are awesome. They're my size. Is there any way we can work out a deal? You know, a reasonable, beneficial deal for both of us here and get this done. And to my surprise, the guy wrote back, gave me a heck of a deal that I could not pass up, because the shoes conditions were 10 out of 10. Original tags, box is perfect, laces, just everything. They're 10 out of 10. He gave me I would say, more than reasonable price on it, knowing what they resell for. And through the correspondence of talking with him, I ended up finding out, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, that it was Bob Bob Petit, I believe. Bob is the man responsible for creating the artwork for Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Now, they have a bunch of illustrators that work on the show that, draw Master Shake and all these different people, but he was the guy that made those original drawings. He worked on the movies. He's done a lot of work, and his IMDb is also staggering. I mean, he's been in working with digital media for a long time. I can name a few of his shows, but one of the ones that always pops out to me is Duckman. If you guys remember Duckman. But Bob's the man. He's an older guy. He's been in the game. I'm such an idiot. He's been doing this for a long time. And when I found out it was him, I just started freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, that is so cool. I never thought I'd cross paths with you. Why are you getting rid of these? And he just was more than cool. And I asked him, I go, hey, is there any way that I could get you to draw me a custom meat wad and just sign it, send it along with the shoes? You don't get the opportunity to speak to somebody like you because you're not on the internet. He's a pretty quiet guy. And I'm like, you don't get this option. You don't get the ability to ask this question a lot, and it's okay if you say no, but I thought I would ask. And he ends up sending me a drawn picture of Meatwad holding a dead squirrel, and it's on my wall right now. Hold on, let me grab it. So he signs it at the bottom, and it's a picture of Meatwad holding the dead squirrel, and it says, "Don't you wear those sneakers, Justin, or I'm gonna get I can't read it, or I'm gonna sick Squirrely on you, and Squirrely don't play." Very silly. If you know the show, you know what he's talking about. But to get that picture custom made, as well as the shoes on top of it, it was wow. Yeah, those are one of those things. You could bury me in those shoes. That's an insane find. And not only was it a great deal, but I made a friend and have been in contact with Bob, and it's been really great. And it was definitely a crazy story how it came to fruition. Definitely dumb luck, but yeah, it was great. And the shoes are awesome. Andrew Singer. Everyone Google Andrew Singer. He asked, what is your opinion about tone woods? Do they matter? I believe so. A lot of people may tell you that the tone is in your fingers and a bunch of other places, but I do think tone wood is a huge thing when it comes to acoustic guitars. And we could probably sit here talking about all different types of wood, body styles, bracing styles, and a whole bunch of things that help the projection of sound. But I always refer back to my own firsthand experience when people ask me about the different types of woods that are made with guitars. And my experience, I think, kind of really paints the picture. So first and foremost, if you lived in an old town growing up, you probably saw a lot of houses made of wood. You probably saw wooden shutters, things of that nature. And if you lived in a place with a lot of rain or a lot of sun, you would see that over time that wood would get beaten down and it would need to be treated and taken care of. Wood still lives after you cut it down. It still has life and a lot of attributes to it. And this is what can make or break a good guitar, because certain guitars are made of certain wood, and over time they expand and they sound beautiful. Other times it's not made with the best wood, and it's kind of a shit show, for lack of a better way of saying it. My first acoustic guitar was an Ibanez, and it was fine for what it was, but truth be told, I grew out of it very quickly. I grew out of the electronics, the body style, really everything with it. And one of the biggest things that always threw me off was the fact that I wanted to keep my guitar humidified because of the places that I lived at. And I believe that humidifying your instrument is a good thing. I've smelled inside of a very nice guitar that has a humidifier inside of it. And when you do that, you can smell the wood. The moisture gets into the wood, and it's a big chunk of wood, and it just smells like wood. Now, when you put a humidifier inside of the Ibanez I have, the only thing you would smell is glue. And that's because essentially the guitar is a bunch of plywood with a fancy veneer put on it, all glued together. And that not only is just not good for a few reasons, but because it is plywood and because of some of these other build qualities, the overall tone, it projects well, but it's not good. And it's much different when you're playing it next to an actual piece of wood, a real nice cut of wood. The projection may be different. There might be tonal options that are different, but you know which one is made with what, and you can tell the subtle differences. And of course, some of these are subjective, but to me, it matters a lot. It just matters a lot. Fat Gunna on Instagram asks, when can you drop a collection video? I have no idea when. My collection is always growing, and I've got so much on the to-do list that is on the low part of that list. But I have been thinking about it more and more. And I got to be honest with you guys, I didn't start getting into collecting to try to break some Guinness World Record or to, make some YouTube channel and like, look at my stuff. It's definitely not like that. And I think you guys understand that by now. I've been thinking of ways of putting more of it online other than just the collection page I have. But it just takes time. So what I'm thinking of doing is once I get back from Illinois, I think I'm going to inventory everything in the collection. And as I'm inventorying everything, what I'm going to do is probably do either one really long video and go through everything, or I'm going to make a bunch of short videos and they're going to be per show. So one video would be like an American Dad collection and just showing what I have for that collection and so on and so forth. It is something I would like to do, but it's just time. I've got way more stuff to work on, and there's not a huge need for that at the moment. But if you like any of the stuff on the Instagram page, send me a DM because I'll send you a private message of anything you want to see. But as far as me doing it independently, yeah, it would probably happen when I get back. Not to be totally repetitive, but it's really motivated by needing to just inventory what I'm doing more than just wanting to document it all. But I think I can, kill two birds with one stone if I do that, In the email, I got one more comment here that I wanted to address. My old buddy Ron sent an email. He's the first person to use the new email. Again, that email is thetellmesomething@gmail.com. Ron writes, I'm digging the new podcast. I really like the 1920s-esque trumpet beats in the beginning. And I wrote to him, the horns are actually a sample from Outlaw Star. It's from a little clip in the show. And I've always loved the little tune, but it's not on any of their CDs or anything like that. So I had to sample it out of the show. And honestly, I just wanted to have fun making the beat. I didn't want it to be anything super serious. And I think that's why it's funny. I think that's why I used the sample and kind of went with that hip hop kind of trap feel to it. It definitely got a lot of laughs over here and was fun to make, and I'm glad you guys enjoy it. I really like that old school feel to that sample too, and it's a real testament to the scores that went on in all of those Band Dice shows, Trigun, Bebop, and specifically Outlaw Star. There's so many songs that are just composed very, very well. They'll make you feel like you're in the Old West, to feeling like you're in the future, to even a song that makes you feel like you're in the 1920s. The compositions that they made for those shows were really enjoyable, and I'm glad you could dig the little tune. I was happy to be able to find a way to actually use it in a fun way, and it's I find the show to be great. I love the song. I thought it was fitting with the name, and yeah, I'm glad you dig it too, man. All right, we got another question here with no name, and the question is, are you still thinking about writing some heavy metal songs, and would you release them under your name or something else? That's a good question. For those that don't know, I pursued metal music for about a decade before I bought an acoustic guitar and started doing some other stuff. I was one of those kids that wanted to be on Warped Tour, wanted to play in those metal core type bands. I'd play guitar for 1 to 3 hours a day, just playing chugging patterns constantly. And I loved it. I recorded a bunch of bedroom metal songs and learned a bunch of stuff, and it was great. I still love metal and different genres of metal to this day. But the itch to want to revisit that has always been there. It's just growing and growing and growing. And what this guy is referring to is, online I made a post asking if people would be interested in hearing something like that, and it seemed like the community was open to it, which is always nice. I would like to put some time into it, even if it's making a 1-minute breakdown. It would just be a fun thing to do. Again, after everything else I'm doing. Can be a little bit less pressure, a little bit more fun. Metal is fun to me, even though it's insanely technical and difficult in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, I've been riffing for a long time, so I've got like little ideas I'd love to throw together and work on something. I don't know if I would put it under a different name. I probably would be more prone to putting it under a different name if I have multiple people attached to it. But for the sake of how small of a fish I am in such a big sea, most likely I would just put it under my name, because I mean, you guys have seen, I get lost in a lot of white noise here. It's hard to get eyeballs on what I'm doing. So just like the podcast, one of the reasons I wanted to put that on my YouTube channel is just to be able to kind of steer any and all traffic. It just helps, and it's not that I'm not appreciative of the traffic that I've had so far. I'm just a little fish, and I'd like to reach more people that may benefit off the kind of stuff I'm doing, and putting more music under my name could achieve that. But who knows? Yeah, I don't, it comes down to time. I'm not a younger cat who's got like a bunch of free time just to be able to kind of blow on things. So if I'm subjecting a lot of time to this and I'm going to sell it, or even if I give it away, if I'm just putting my name under it, and trying to grab some sort of royalty off of it, I'm going to put some serious effort into it, even if it is fun. But it comes down to available time. All right, so I got one last question here from a guy named Soul on Face on Instagram, who asks, how do you feel about taking vintage tees to the dry cleaners? If not, then the best way to wash blacks. Well, I'm not like a vintage t-shirt collector, though I own a good portion of them because they are related to some of the collections that I have. I'm pretty laid back when it comes to that sort of stuff. I usually air dry most things, wash it on cold, don't bleed colors, simple stuff like that. I also try to wash things gently because they are vintage, or not even wash at all. If the shirt comes clean, I might bag it and just be done with it. But again, I'm not a vintage t-shirt collector. So what I did was reach out to a friend of mine, and his handle on Instagram is Tilted Moons, one word. It's a guy named Brian. He's the best. He's always throwing out deals and finding stuff for people, and he's into a lot of the same stuff I am. He's definitely a huge Space Ghost fan, Arrested Development fan. The list goes on, Aqua Teen, etc., etc. He's got a Critic shirt that is one of the funniest Critic shirts I've ever seen, and he won't sell it to save his life. I don't blame him. But I digress. I reached out to him, and he said, I don't try to preserve anything really because it's vintage for me. I want it a little beat up, just not damaged. So I reached out to Brian, and he said that the biggest tip is OxyClean for your whites for stains. They come out easier than people think. He goes, but he's pretty laxed on what he does. He washes cold to preserve graphics and fabrics inside out. Room temperature at warmest too for things like the OxyClean treatment. He says he doesn't air dry. He says he uses dryers all day long. But again, it's just really trying to preserve the shirt as much as possible. With some of those vintage shirts, you get graphic cracking, fading, things like that, which doesn't always affect the retail value. If a collector wants a shirt, even if it's like a 6 out of 10 condition wise, they're still going to pick it up, but its overall price will be dramatically different from a 9 or a 10 out of 10. So wanting to be safe with everything is good, but that OxyClean with the whites is not a bad suggestion. I've actually never done that. I'd be a little bit apprehensive. I just wouldn't want to use too much and bleach the shirt. Maybe I can reach back out to him and find out how much, but I imagine that there's probably tutorials out there or even directions on the OxyClean itself, Well, now that is all of the questions for this week. Again, send questions, comments, advice, anything you want to the email, thetellmesomethingreatpodcast@gmail.com. I think that's the end of the episode this week, guys. I hope you guys are doing well out there and being safe. I'm seeing people who already got their vaccines are now still getting the virus. We're living in crazy times. All the more reason to find something great out there. You know what I mean? Well, until the next episode, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff. Check out last week's episode if you didn't get a chance. And I will talk to you guys on the next solo episode. Adios. Goodbye, friends. Thank you so much for listening. Bye, friends. Bye, bye, bye.
That's great.